Okay, welcome back to the Jersey History Series. This is episode 8. The team we're covering today is the Detroit Red Wings. So, original six team in the NHL, so this might be a bit of a longer video, similar to Chicago, a bit more history to cover than the average team. But here's the current logo for the Red Wings. Very iconic in all of sports, a very recognizable logo for many people, even if you do not watch hockey. You've got the wheel there for Michigan, Detroit, Motor City, and then the wings coming off of it. The Red Wings have practically kept the same look for most of their history, but some very, very subtle changes happening throughout. So, originally, the Detroit Red Wings were not the Detroit Red Wings. They stayed in Detroit, but were known as the Cougars, and this was the team founded in 26-27, and this was the look used by the Detroit Cougars that season. And here were the jerseys debuted. Very simple striping. You got red going through the waist and sleeves, white pants, and then red and white striped socks. And then that logo in white on the jersey. The next season, the Cougars would change their logo, adding that stylized D in a shield. This was used 26-27 to 29-30. In that season, the Cougars would use a different version of the previous jersey, adding some more striping around the waist and around the sleeves and around the midsection as well. You had red pants now with the uniforms, and the striping followed along on the socks, and just having the word marked Detroit across the front of the jersey. 28-29, we would see them make a uniform change and have a new logo as well. So no waist striping or striping going through the midsection, some thin striping going along the sleeves and socks, sticking with the red pants, and then you had Detroit spelled out, curved with the drawing of a cougar. Then in the final season for the Cougars, they would go back to that uniform in the previous season, and this time the word mark in red outlined in white. After that season, the team would rename from 30-31 to 31-32. They were known as the Detroit Falcons. And they would keep a very similar look to their previous striping pattern uniforms with the Cougars, this time having the Falcons logo, adding yellow into the color scheme as well as yellow on the numbers on the back. After that season, the Falcons would rename and become the Detroit Red Wings, and we have our first iteration of the winged logo, and this is used from 32-33 to 47-48. And here are the jerseys debuted by the Detroit Red Wings. So these are used from 32-33 to 33-34, much simpler than the previous uniforms. All red jersey with a thin stripe on the waist and on the sleeves, follow along on the socks and red pants, and then you have a white outline for the number. And then you get a white version of that winged wheel logo. 34-35 to 36-37, they add a road uniform to their set, and it's basically just an inverse of that red jersey. 37-38 to 39-40, the number on the back of the red jersey is now a solid colored white. 40-41 to 47-48, the pants get a white stripe on them. Other than that, there is very little change. 48-49, they slightly update the logo and they make the wings a bit longer on it. And this is the look used still till today. Now, this logo has not changed for the Red Wings, but they did experiment a lot with inversing the colors and having the shading and outlines in different places, and they changed it quite a lot throughout the history. So you'll see what I mean with these jerseys here. 48-49 to 55-56, striping and everything stays the same, but the logos are the new ones on the front, and you can see the logo slightly tilted to the right, as well as a bit of the shading and outlining different between the home and away, more of a white colored version on the red jersey. 56-57 to 71-72, the Red Wings add red on the arms and then a white stripe. So this is practically the look that the Red Wings have kept since then, about 75 years of this iconic look for Detroit. 72-73 to 76-77, they once again play around with some of the shading and coloring on the logo, and it still has that tilt to it. Also, a name is added to the top of the white home jersey. 77-78 to 81-82, we see them add a nameplate to the back of the red jersey. 82-83, once again, we see them play around with inversing the colors and adding an extra outline to the logo. We also get this new font on the back as well as a curved nameplate and a bit of a fancy looking number on the back of both the home and the away jersey. Then in 83-84, they would change the numbers back to what they had, as well as playing around again with inversing and shading the different colors on the home and away logos. Then in 84-85 to 86-87, they would slightly tweak the collars and change the sizing of the numbers. Other than that, no big change. 87-88 to 06-07. So this is the look for the Red Wings used for a very long time, and they would use that main logo. They would tilt the wing up slightly, and they would finally stop playing around with the shading and inversing of the Red Wings logo. Also, the white stripe on the waist would move down slightly, and yeah, this look used for a very good portion of their history. Also, during that time span, the NHL had a Turn Back the Clock series where all the original 6 teams would have a throwback uniform, and Detroit throwing back to the Cougars' original uniforms. 07-08 to 16-17, Reebok takes over the designs for the jerseys, and to very little surprise, the Red Wings stick with their iconic look. During that time, in 08-09, the Detroit Red Wings would play in the Winter Classic against the Chicago Blackhawks, and they would use another throwback of the Detroit Cougars. 13-14, the Red Wings would play in another Winter Classic, this time against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this jersey using that original wing logo, this time in an off-white color with the word mark Detroit overhead, and some very nice striping there, very classic looking with the off-white coloring. 15-16, the Red Wings play in the Stadium Series against the Colorado Avalanche. We get a very futuristic looking logo here. It's a more modernized version of that Detroit Cougars D-stylized logo, and we get a big slash of white across the middle of the jersey. Very popular one, and a very difficult jersey to find as well. 16-17, the Red Wings would play in the Centennial Classic. This would be celebrating the NHL's 100th anniversary. They would play against the Toronto Maple Leafs in this game once again. And this jersey having some pretty cool details to it. You could see the silver striping at the top. Having engraved in the striping, you have all the Stanley Cup victories for the Detroit Red Wings along there. And then also the logo would have a slight change with silver accents instead of white on the wing logo there. So very nice looking jersey here. 17-18, Adidas takes over the design for the Detroit Red Wings. Nothing really changes. They keep everything the same. 2021, the Reverse Retro Series rolls out for Detroit, and this jersey is brought in. The Red Wings, really with only red and white to work with, it's very hard to retro anything, but they go back to some of their original home jerseys before they had the red arms, and they grab that gray from inspiration from that Centennial jersey. This does not go over very well with fans. This is just referred to as the practice jersey by many for just how basic and dull it looks. And finally, for this year's Reverse Retro 2.0, the Red Wings once again going back to a Cougars throwback, very similar to that Turn Back the Clock series, but this time adding black accents into the uniform. And this is the first time we're seeing the addition of black in Detroit's history. And this one so far has not gone over very well with fans either. Adding the black in there is very similar looking to the Chicago Blackhawks, who is the Red Wings' biggest rival, one of their biggest rivals and one of the biggest in NHL history. And yeah, these are very Blackhawks looking, especially when you compare it side by side with the Blackhawks Reverse Retro 2.0 for this season. But that is it for the Red Wings. A history that, if you don't really look through it too much, you won't realize all the subtle changes. They played around so much with the shading and the inversing of the logo. And yeah, I'm not sure why they decided to play around so much, but this is the look that is stuck. And for the future for the Red Wings, I don't see them ever changing. I think 50 years from now, if the NHL is still going, the Red Wings will still be using the uniforms they have today, and rightfully so. They're great looking uniforms, iconic logo. So that is it for Detroit. Thank you for watching this episode of the Jersey History series, and stay tuned for the next episode.